Forever. Dog.
I've never really wanted to be a movie star.
Okay.
I have always wanted to be a character actor, which is one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this show.
Oh, nice.
Was that my goal when I was a kid was to be the character actor.
Same. 100%.
And we have faces that are pleasant to look at, but they're not movie star faces.
No one's gonna.
So it's not going to pop out at you, but you're going to go, oh, hey, there's that guy. That's happily my career.
Hello and welcome to Household Faces, the podcast where a character actor interviews other character actors. I'm your host, John Ross Bowie. You might know me from The Big Bang Theory or Speechless or the series finale of Grace and Frankie. Yes, the episode that also had Dolly Parton in it. I know, it's easy to forget I'm in that when Dolly Parton shows up. Yeah. Our guest is Diedrich Bader. Whew, Diedrich Bader. What a giant. I mean, Drew Carey Show, but also Office Space, Napoleon Dynamite, his work on Better Things. He has a very interesting approach to TV vis-a-vis his approach to film, and we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about growing up in Paris. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in this interview. I've known Diedrich for years, just from the audition circuit, and we've become friends, which is kind of neat because we are often going out for the same role up against each other, but it doesn't matter because you get to a certain age and you're just kind of all in this together. And a lot of the petty competition that slows actors down in their 20s and 30s just kind of evaporates. And you're all just lucky to, still be in the mix. I think you can hear that in the course of this interview. Please welcome Diedrich Bader. Diedrich Bader, thank you so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure,
I'm so excited to have you here. We have so much to talk about, but I want to notice something at the top.
Okay.
Which is there's an interesting quality to your performances. I feel like there's a TV Diedrich and there's a movie Diedrich. And TV Diedrich tends to be very, very grounded, very relatable. Mm-hmm. This is somebody who you work with or is in your family. And then movie Diedrich tends to be a little bit bigger. Tends to be a little, not like Jerry Lewis level, but like these are just slightly broader characterizations. Do you find that to be the case?
Absolutely. That's a great...
Why do you think that is?
Mostly because I do movies for fun and I don't really consider it a job. You should see some of the auditions that I've done, like so broad, they're intense. So if they buy what I bring in, then I'm going to head out of town. My number one thing in my career is to... make sure that my life is livable, that I'm not a gypsy, that I have a very strong relationship with my wife, my kids, and my friends, and my garden. So if I am heading out of town, which is the majority of movies are shot out of town.
Yeah, it would appear so, yeah.
Yeah. It's going to have to be fun for me. Like, I'm going to have a really good time. And
that would equate in your head to a slightly bigger performance.
Yes, like something that I would never get away with on television. And I walk into the room and I'm like, this is the way I'm going to do it. Where if I walk into a TV room and audition, I'm like, how do you want it?
Interesting. Well, also there's a couple interesting things about this. Because one, the movie thing is like you're going to have to sustain this fever pitch for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
2 weeks, 3 weeks tops.
Yes, because I really don't want to be in too much of the movie.
Why not?
I've never really wanted to be a movie star.
Okay.
I have always wanted to be a character actor, which is one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this show.
Oh, nice.
Was that my goal when I was a kid was to be the character actor.
Same. 100%.
And so it's easier for me. I love the guys that played a bunch of different characters. Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers comes up all the time.
Alec Guinness as well.
Yeah, it's funny. People don't. Alec Guinness. There's still too many young people who just know him as Obi-Wan Kenobi, but if you miss out on the Ealing Studios work that he did, Kind Hearts and Coronets
That's the one.
It is a tour de force.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so weird to think of generations of like, oh, he's that British Buddha guy from Star Wars. Like, there's so much more. He is the goofiest goddamn
Ironically,
comedian.
that's his least favorite performance.
No, I know. He was famously
really
unhappy about it. And that's also kind of a bummer. I would love for everyone to be a little more happy.
Yeah.
So why is it that you think, aside from the fact that, if you do something on TV, you might have to do it for 5 or 7 seasons versus, a film performance where you might be in and out in 2 weeks.
That's
depending
it.
On the
Or
size
even
of
a couple of days.
Even a couple of days, yeah. Why do you said something about like things that I could never get away with on TV. Why does TV require a slightly smaller, more grounded piece of work?
I think it's because you're in people's living rooms over and over and over again, and they're going to have to buy you as a real person. And to make such incredibly bold, like Lawrence, for example, in Office Space.
Yeah.
I think if he were in a series, it'd probably wear you down. But as it is, just kind of sprinkled, leavened throughout the movie, you're okay with him, and he's a favorite character, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But in TV, I think it would wear you down. I think it would be too much. Like you'd see him and you go sort of roll your eyes, like, oh, here he is again. So yeah, I mean, I made a bolder choice. Did I tell you the story of how I came up with the character of Lawrence? This is a total diversion.
I was going to get to that later. I was going to start elsewhere, but let's hit it. Go ahead.
So I had just seen Bottle Rocket at the New Beverly,
okay,
and I thought Owen Wilson was fantastic in it, just great.
No,
and that was the first time that I saw him.
Maybe my favorite Owen Wilson performance.
It's a great performance,
yeah,
and because he reminded me of the upper middle class kids that I grew up with, who were so wild and so unpredictable that you knew they would never follow in the footsteps of their father. I don't know what they would end up doing.
But they also might not face serious consequences by virtue of being upper middle class.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Upper middle class white people, the world is made for you. So, yeah. I mean, it's like, I can't tell you how many times I got pulled over and led off because I had the way that I spoke and the way that I looked, and it was just incredibly easy. I literally ran into 2 police cars and they let me go. So, but I knew people like his character, and they ended up working in construction. And I just thought, oh, it's shooting in Austin. I'm going to do like an Owen Wilson impression, which I can't do now, so don't ask. But I thought, because it's like he's this guy who was brought up in the same environment and just decided that a little like Biff, that he wanted to do something with his hands. He wanted to escape from the materialism of his middle class upbringing and the capitalist structure as a whole, and work with his hands and feel good about the end of his day.
Outside
and be outside.
And have stuff he could look at and be like, I built that.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, that's this guy. So I worked on it for a couple of weeks, and had it pretty much down. Signed in. Sat down. Owen Wilson walked out of the room.
Fucking hell.
I see him walk by. He's a lot shorter than I thought he would be. And I ran to the sheet that you sign in, put your name on. And he was reading for Lawrence.
Oh, my God.
And I was like, holy, I can't do a better Owen Wilson than Owen Wilson. Probably. I have to come up with a new character right now. I was the only guy in the waiting room, by the way, so there's no like cushion time.
You're next?
Casting director comes out and goes, Diedrich, are you ready? I go, I mean... So in between me standing there and me sitting in the room, which is probably 35, 40 seconds, I came up with the character of Lawrence.
And so when you suddenly have to like break the glass and go for your emergency character, what's in there?
I have no idea where Lawrence came from.
Oh, okay.
But the voice, his
tell me
timing,
where he didn't come from.
Yeah, his voice, his timing, everything was fully formed the second I sat down, and it was almost an out-of-body experience because I knew the lines so well after running them forever.
Yeah, sure.
And also, as you know, like when you're on a sitcom, your mind is sharp as a tack because you have to learn lines over and over and over again in such an incredibly short period of time.
And they get changed on you a lot.
And they get changed on you.
Yeah,
so
the only thing that makes you sharper is a soap opera.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, those soap actors are machines.
Oh my God, they're machines.
Yeah.
The only problem is you can always predict what they're going to do. The time that I've worked with soap actors.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Where sitcom actors tend to like will surprise you.
They tend to be a little more flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I honestly had this out-of-body experience where Lawrence just came in and just was fully formed in there. And the first take was completely ruined because Judge laughed through the whole thing and lost his shit, really.
What's the scene? Like, is it the scene with what would you
two
do if
chicks
you
at
had
the
all
same
the
time,
two chicks at the same time? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Which is now such a wonderful GIF.
It is, I know.
Yeah, very popular GIF.
Yeah.
Whenever the Powerball goes really high, that one goes into circulation.
It's really, honestly, it's totally crazy because that's probably that's the thing I get recognized the most for. People will shout
Even
it
with
out.
the crazy wig and the mustache, you're
Everything,
still
yeah,
identified
yeah.
with that. That's so interesting. So
Yeah,
I have
100%.
I have two follow-up questions for you then.
Yeah.
First one, so you pull this audition read out of thin air,
Yeah.
and then you book it, and there's probably a few weeks between
months
between
months.
audition and shooting.
Yeah.
So did you have a moment of like, now what was it I did?
No.
No, you had it. You
No,
you came
he
up
was
with
locked in.
He was locked in. That's amazing.
I literally just met him that exact second. And then the rest of the time, he was just waiting. Yeah. I mean, as you know, it's like, it's also interesting characters that you can improvise with and characters that you can't.
Yeah.
Because a lot of stuff just occurred to me when I started playing him. And it did it. And I asked for another take. Mike was really open to it, which was awesome. He was great.
During the audition?
No, during when we were actually shooting.
Oh, great.
Once we got it down, locked in, which is the only way I like to work. I do not like to change anything until it is as written, because it's approved by the studio.
Right.
And they're the ones who are ultimately going to hire me again. So I think you have to do it as written,
Well, it's
and then
also
take another
respectful
take.
especially
The
if you're a
writer worked
writer-director.
so long. Oh my God!
If you have a writer-director who's running the show, the least you can do is do several takes as written, and then if you are given
if they're print and they're moving on,
yeah.
then if something did occur to me,
Yeah.
then I will ask for another take.
Okay, great.
Because the thing that takes the longest, and people that aren't in show business don't know this, so just a little bit of an explanation. The thing that takes the longest is setting up the lights and changing the camera.
Yeah.
The takes are actually really, really short.
Yeah.
If you have a
90
2 minute,
seconds,
yeah,
yeah.
if you have a 2 minute scene, it's pretty rare that it's that long.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're talking about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So if the director's cool, they will generally go, yeah. I mean, really, it's 2 minutes. The producer is not going to go
Yeah.
for that.
Right.
Well, maybe you find something. Maybe you don't.
Right.
But it is, what I've also found is it's unhealthy for a director to say no when I've seen other actors ask. Because then the actor feels like he's not a participant. He's not equal.
Not a collaborator.
He's not a collaborator. He's not being trusted.
Yeah.
And respected in a weird way. Even though they were supposed to do it as is, they feel like, why can't I? Then it becomes acrimonious, possibly. So better just to take the 2 minutes, because then you're kind of out of the way. You could throw it out. You don't need to print it. You could say print and then not print it. You could do whatever.
Also, we're not really printing anymore. It's all digital, for God's sake.
exactly.
We're not burning film, for fuck's
Right,
sake.
it's just numbers. Yeah. When I started, it was
zeros
film.
and ones, dude.
Zeros
Yeah.
and ones. When I started, it was film.
When we started, it was film. You were under lights that were 3 times hotter than
Oh my
they
God,
are now.
are you kidding me?
This
Yeah.
is something that people don't understand
Yeah.
outside the business, is that
Yeah.
sets have gotten literally cooler over the past 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Because
They used to burn you up.
digital picks up more natural light.
Oh my God.
So you're not under these fucking heat lamps that they use at diners
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
keep orders warm. It is all the more reason to kind of let things develop organically.
Yeah.
When that film came out and
Bombed.
was decent, okay, I was gonna be able to, didn't do the business expected, but then got a real second life on video.
Oh yeah, crazy.
That had to feel kind of amazing, or did it, because it was so gradual?
So, we weren't able to go to the premiere because it was on a Tuesday night, which was the tape night for the Drew Carey Show.
Oh, fuck.
So, it is what it is. So we went opening weekend, my wife and I, Saturday night at the AMC 14, which at the time was the busiest movie theater in Los Angeles.
Where's the AMC 14?
It's at the Century City.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Anyway, there was one other person in the theater.
Saturday night opening weekend.
And he left.
Oh, fucking hell.
So my wife and I, he left before I was on the screen. So my wife and I watched, and watching a movie with an actor is a horrible thing to do. It isn't enjoyable for anyone.
No, the actor's not having a good time. No, the person with the actor is not having a good
only
time.
Looking at their own performance. Their takes,
specifically the flaws in that performance.
That's all you see. The first time, that's all you see.
Yeah.
What I could have done. Why didn't they use that other take? Why do I look like that? What, it's the worst. My wife, being an actor as well, knows that that's what I'm going through. So, but I'm just waiting. I'm watching the film, knowing that it's a bomb, and it colors my entire judgment. I can't look at it and enjoy it because every scene I actually like, but America clearly is not going to like this picture. So my taste is incredibly questionable at this point. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I really wanted to be in this movie. I was ecstatic when I was shooting it. I loved working with Ron. I loved working with Mike. I thought the script was great. I thought the art direction was amazing.
Art direction is phenomenal. It looks so sharply realized and specific.
Yeah. It looks like an actual genuine bachelor pad. One of the things that drives me completely crazy about art direction and bachelor pads is that they cover their place with pizza boxes and laundry and
but also exposed brick and high ceilings. You know, all the other shit that you can't afford. Like, it's a mess, but it's also a gorgeous mess. But with ceiling high windows.
That's true. But but most of the time it's like these epic messes. I only knew one guy who lived like that. Most of the time, bachelors, it's like it looks fine. It's not incredibly clean, but it's also not a total mess.
No.
But anyway, so I loved how anonymous it all looked. Like, he didn't put any thought into it.
Yeah.
He really didn't. And I loved that idea of it because he just got what he thought was expected of him with the apartment, and nothing that his girlfriend would go, what's that doing there? Like, all of that, right?
Yeah.
I got it. And I walked in and I was like, oh, perfect.
Yeah, sure.
And we had this talk, Mike and I. He really wanted the mullet. I really wanted the mustache. And he was just yes-anding. And so it was like beautiful. Like, everything about it was fantastic. I was shooting a movie in Dallas at the same time, so I was flying in between Austin and Dallas. Wow. And I was having trouble with the director in Dallas. He and I did not see eye to eye. Okay. And he was really not into me changing anything. And we had arguments, and it was an acrimonious relationship. And it was a little like, not hell, but a little bit like very different sets. Because one was open and fantastic and just like lovely, and the other was closed down and very mechanical. And I was unhappy.
What was the movie in Dallas?
Certain Guys, which was a great script,
Okay.
Came out on cable.
Okay.
It was like a diner, but in Dallas.
Okay.
And it never went anywhere, and I think because he quashed the idea of it. Like, it just never went anywhere.
Full disclosure, it did not come up in my homework.
Yeah, it would not. Okay. I would be shocked. Okay. But anyway, so it came out, and I knew it was going to bomb, and then it bombed, and it was this searing moment and painful for me because I really believed in it. And at the same time, I was on the Drew Carey Show, so I was like, too bad. Right. And then moved on and shot other things and kept going. And then 2 years later, my wife and I were driving to go to the Taper downtown. And this classic truck pulls up next to me. There's two guys with tats all over. And they see me and they like nudge each other and whatever. I'm like, and they go, what'd you do if you had $1 million? Amazing. And I was like, what? And they go, what would you do if you had $1 million? I go, two chicks at the same time, dude. And they go, yeah, and give each other a high five, and then they pull off. And I turn to my wife and I go, that was from Office Space. And she goes, yeah, I thought I recognized that. And I go,
And your wife goes, yeah, fucking better have been.
yeah. And I go, what's happening with Office Space? Like, did those dudes know that? And she goes, I don't know. Then I got a kick-ass residual check.
Ah!
And I was like, something's happening with Office Space.
That's so interesting.
And then I started being recognized for Office Space over and over and over again.
After years on
2
TV.
years.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is happening? And then it just took on its own thing. And so I didn't see it for another 8 years.
Really?
I've seen it twice, once opening weekend and once in Austin at the 10th anniversary.
I have seen this film so many more times than you have.
That's crazy.
I have seen this film so many more times than you have. Go ahead.
I'm happy with it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah, 10 years. And it was at a screening at the South by Southwest, which was really, really fun because the
perfect.
tickets sold out really
Hometown
fast.
Screening,
Oh my God. And
cult
the tickets
favorite.
sold, cold favorite. The tickets sold out in like seconds. They were being scalped for all. So
Oh, man.
the waves of laughter cascading down and then off the screen and back at me was, I just get chills even thinking about that moment because I was like, okay, I wasn't entirely wrong.
Told you this was a good script. It's
I
so
wasn't
interesting.
entirely wrong.
I one of them. I did not see it upon its initial release.
Yeah, of
I
course.
saw it on
Nobody did.
VHS the following year. I didn't see it upon its initial release because I had just left 5 or 6 years of straight corporate work and was in no fucking mood.
Yeah, why
I was
would
like, well,
you?
this
Yeah.
is kind of, this is sort of taking, it's a satire. I'm like, I don't care.
No,
I
it's
don't
like,
wish
it's like
to.
a vet watching a war movie.
Yeah,
Why-
this is my fucking platoon. I don't want to, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
That's, I don't mean to cheapen the experience of,
Of course,
veterans.
yeah.
But
Thank you for service.
But yeah, there's a sense, but once I was able to watch it, it is so meticulous in its detailed. And the moment I fall in love, your work is great, everyone's work is great. The moment that I fall in love is just the little static electricity shock on the doorknob.
Yeah.
That little moment is just so like, oh my God, that was every day. And we were always told that there was a trick you could do if you had a bunch of hard disks in your hand. You tossed them up in the air just as you grabbed the knob so that you wouldn't like shock the disks and possibly erase them. So we all had this like juggling act.
They're more
going
worried
on.
about the discs.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely more worried about the discs.
Yeah.
So that was wonderfully realized. I'm a huge fan of the film. And I wonder, Jamie and I was talking about whether or not we want to show it to our kids. And I was like, my dream is that they never have a life where they really get that movie.
Yeah.
But
that is the dream, yeah.
One final Office Space question.
Yeah,
There is a missing ending that is a little darker that I think you're in, or are you in that it's an extended scene of spoiler alert if you've not seen the film, skip ahead like 30 45 seconds or so. The scene at the end where they go to visit Ron and he's now working at the construction site ostensibly with you, and then they leave. There's an extended version on the DVD, which I own because I love that movie.
I'm loving this. Yeah.
Where his boss, the foreman, comes up to him and goes,
Lawrence's boss.
Well, yeah. Do you come over and are you the one who says?
No. It's Lawrence is not the boss. Lawrence works with Ron's character.
Right.
And the boss comes over and is basically the same.
Yeah.
And
we
so
need you to come in on Saturday.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah.
So it shatters the illusion of Lawrence's freedom and of Ron's character's freedom.
I'm really glad that's cut.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really glad that's cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me talk about your childhood for a moment. And you're kind of, so was your dad a diplomat? Was your dad State Department? You moved all over the place as a child.
So it's questionable what my dad actually was doing. I don't really know. When we were in France, he was working for the Ford Foundation.
Okay.
So he was the European representative for the Ford Foundation. But the questionable part about my dad's career was that he was recruited for the CIA when he was in Vienna. And the big debate among all of our siblings is the Bader siblings, I should say, is whether or not he ever really left. the way that it's been explained to me by other agents is that you don't really leave.
You mean agents in the Central Intelligence, not in the Hollywood sense of the term, right? Okay, just to clarify.
Is that you never really leave because
you can't.
Yeah, it's also you either buy into it or you don't buy into it, if their mission is real or not. And so if you have bought into it, which he did, if you come upon something that is of interest, you pass it on.
Right.
Because these guys that you served with in the field, you feel as close to as bringing it back to vets. You're veterans together. You've served together. So you have a loyalty to them that you don't to other people.
So let me ask you this. When was your dad born? What year was your dad born?
He was born in 33.
33. So he's silent generation. He is 30 for the Cuban Missile Crisis and thereabouts. Is he in the CIA at that point?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he's in the thick of the Cold War.
Yeah. And also he was in Vienna. I mean, that's where he was recruited. He was recruited in Vienna. And he was recruited by a guy... did you ever read Cloak and Dagger? It's about the early days of the CIA.
No, but I read Legacy of Ashes, which is about the whole of CIA up into the 2000s. That's a great one,
yeah.
But anyway. I'm a fan.
What they found is during World War II, Wild Bill Davidson, who started the whole thing or changed it into the... But anyway, during World War II, he found that if you're caught, you're supposed to give 24 hours for the codes to change, everybody, the office to be shut down, for them to figure out that you have been caught, for everything to change and the mission to be abandoned. Just give us 24 hours. After that time, say everything. Tell them everything.
Because none of it matters anymore.
None of it matters, and it'll sound real because it was real. And you, no one can stand up to that torture. Just don't do it. Just give it up. Give it up. It's fine. They found that those that never did were the ones that had been orphaned or lost their father at a very early age and then had gone to an Ivy League school and then were recruited by an older guy. In their subconscious, they didn't want to betray their new dad.
Well, the daddy issues running through the CIA, and you read like 30 pages on the CIA, and it's all Ivy League daddy issues.
It is.
It's striking. And then you go, but Herbert Walker Bush was head of the... wow.
It's all that.
Interesting.
So Davidson noticed that pattern, because that's what you do when you're a spy. You notice patterns. And he was like, oh my God, these guys this is what I need to make an entire agency of these guys. My dad's dad, my grandfather, was killed when my father was 3. And it was very brutal. He was run over with a steamroller. And then my dad has always been trying to find another dad, had been, and was recruited in Vienna by a guy.
What was he doing in Vienna?
He was a Fulbright scholar.
Oh my God.
To study medieval history.
And was he an Ivy Leaguer?
Princeton, yeah.
Princeton, okay.
Anyway, he was recruited by a guy whose father had also been killed. At my dad's wake, I talked to an older agent. By older, I'd say like he's in his 60s now. Okay. And he had been recruited by my dad. I didn't know he was an agent until I figured out that he had also been orphaned. And it's like when you read Art Pepper's book, Straight Life, junkies recognize each other. Like they see...
Yeah, they do.
They see each other across the room and they're like, oh yeah, you're a junkie. Even in a crowded room with a bunch of other jazz musicians, Art Pepper could look across the room and go, okay, you're the junkie.
Yeah.
Right. And
you don't even need to have your sleeves rolled up. You can just tell, yeah.
Orphans recognize other orphans.
Interesting.
There's a need. There's a need.
Do you think this has inspired your need to not necessarily be a star, but to be a steadily working actor who still can provide for his family?
That's an interesting insight. I never thought about that. Maybe. I mean, maybe.
To provide a certain stability that it sounds like you had, all things considered, you had a certain amount of a stable home life, but your father clearly didn't.
No.
And
he was largely out of my life, even though my parents never divorced. He was out of the country, 200 days out of the year.
Jesus, really?
Yeah.
So So you spent a bunch of your childhood in Paris. There's a crazy story that may or may not be true about Charlie Chaplin and you.
No, that's true.
That's true? Tell
Yeah.
that story, please.
Okay, so my siblings were all older, and my parents gave them a deal that if they took me to the movies, that my parents would pay for everybody that went. So that's why I saw so many movies when I was a kid and actually fell in love with movies. And the only reason I'm an actor and not an academic like my siblings is because of that. Wow. So I would sit in that screen and I was deeply alienated because I just learned English and now they're speaking French all around me, right?
Fucking hell, yeah.
So I associated with silent characters the most.
I was going to say, so even the intertitles, you don't really need the intertitles. You're figuring out what's going on anyway.
So, like Harpo Marx was my favorite, right? Because not only was he an anarchist, which appeals to little kids, but he was silent.
Yeah.
I loved Buster Keaton. I'm just on a side note, I also really loved the Fred Astaire movies. But I really loved Charlie Chaplin.
Really?
I worshipped him. And that combination of sentiment and hardcore comedy, very strong physical comedy,
Right.
really, really appealed to every part of me.
Right.
And so my brother and I were in a room together, but every time he left, I would work on my Charlie Chaplin impression. And it was just something I loved to do, but I kept it a secret. Oh, wow. Because I didn't want anybody to make fun of me.
Yeah.
You know, older siblings, that's basically their whole life.
Are you the youngest?
I am. I'm the baby. 4. Wow. And the idiot. But anyway, so I didn't want to be teased routinely. Anyway, my favorite theater in Paris had live accompaniment.
Oh, man.
And I don't remember what the movie was because I was very young. I was 5. But Audrey Scher, my mother's best friend, took me, knowing that this was my favorite theater and that it was only showing during the day, and she took me. And the organ player was playing, and the film got caught and burned, and everybody booed. And naturally, because the show has been, so, but I said to myself, nobody boos Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, dear.
So I jumped up and I ran down and I got in between the audience and the screen and I started doing my Charlie Chaplin act. And,
You're 5.
Yeah. And the organ players started playing. And I remember doing it and I remember drawing it out because I was getting these huge laughs.
Yeah, of course.
And then I remember doing a roll at the end and doffing my invisible hat. And this old man, it can make me teary, this old man in the front, bald, I mean, obviously had clearly seen the war or whatever, middle of the day, retired guy, got up and started clapping and the rest of this theater stood up and started clapping. And I did my little bow. I am getting emotional. And sat back down. And I was like, you know when you do it well, it's the greatest feeling.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my God, I nailed it. And then by that time they'd fixed the reel, went back to the thing.
My God.
Here's what's so crazy about this story. I forgot. It's my origin story and I forgot it.
It is very much it's the radioactive spider.
That's it. When I went to go see Chaplin.
Oh, yeah.
In the beginning, Geraldine Chaplin, his mother, is a vaudeville performer. She was also schizophrenic or had a nervous breakdown on stage. Yeah. Charlie Chaplin was 5 years old. The audience starts booing his mother. He says to himself, nobody's booing my mother.
Oh, my God.
Jumps up and does a pantomime act.
And there's no way you could have known that at 5.
And I burst into tears in the theater. And all of that, I know during the 80s they had all this recovered memory and some of it was made up, but this memory came back to me so intensely that I was like, oh my God, that's what happened to me. Yeah. That's why I'm an actor. Just, like an incredible flashback. Oh, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I had this memory and it was so incredibly powerful, but I have to know if it's true. And she goes, all right. And, wasp. And I said, I told her the story. And she goes, oh, yeah, Audrey took you. And I went, that is the reason I'm an actor. I mean, this was the most important event of my life. And she goes, oh, is that it?
Wow.
And I went, that's it, I guess. Sure. Anyway, nice to hear your voice. Okay.
So let me get this straight. You've got a distant father, a withholding mom, and somehow you end up in comedy. That's wild.
I want everybody's approval all the time.
I'm not going to put anybody on a couch here. That's not my job. But striking.
Interesting. There's a pattern.
Can we talk about the Drew Carey Show for a
moment?
Yeah, please. Which it's gonna sound like I'm making up my fandom, but the more I was going through your stuff, I was like, oh, I've been a Diedrich Bader fan for like 25 years. I loved. There was something very unique about the Drew Carey Show in that these characters, in a way that other sitcoms didn't, these characters seemed to know they were funny.
Yeah.
They seem to understand. My friend Mike Galvin, I have to shout him out, was the first one who pointed out, because they laugh at each other's jokes on that show, and it's really endearing.
Yeah.
And was that something you guys, was that a deliberate thing to just happen and then you noticed it? Like, because it is really distinct among, because you think that's the era of, it's the end of Seinfeld, it's the dawn of Friends, and there's brilliant shows, obviously, but very, very few times do people realize how funny the people around them are.
That's right. That's fascinating that you observe that. And I think you're the only one who, at least in my experience, has pointed that out. Those are takes that were used by Bruce Helford when we were actually genuinely laughing at each other. Of course, as you know, scripts change a lot on sitcoms, so a lot of it is new. Ryan Stiles is a genius.
Yeah, sure.
Drew is very funny and great guy.
Yeah.
They both would actually genuinely make me laugh. We made each other laugh.
Yeah.
Not as Oswald, Lewis, and Drew, but as us.
Diedrich, Ryan.
Right.
Yeah.
It would genuinely funny. Particularly Ryan, really made me laugh.
Yeah.
And I would lose it. I lost it a ton of times. I'm the worst. I'm the first to go because I just love being part of comedy, and the fact that I have the greatest seat, to somebody who's as talented as Ryan Stiles. He's right as close as we are right now.
I know.
And he's being so funny. I'm like, oh, it's really funny to me. Bruce ended up using those takes.
Really?
So we're genuinely
Bloopers on any
at
other show.
Bloopers on any other show. He used those takes because
that is fascinating.
I finally talked to him about it. It really only came through in the second year.
Okay.
I talked to him about it, and he goes, well, you guys like each other.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, right,
you can't
of course.
fake that.
You can't fake that. And when people watch, they see that we're really friends. We really genuinely hung out together. We went on vacations together.
Oh, my God.
We really loved each other.
You're coworkers.
I know.
That's
and
glorious.
We went to Bears. We went to bars together. We really tore it up. And it was pre-internet days, the days where people would take videos of you tearing it up.
Getting shit-faced.
Getting shit-faced together, staggeringly drunk.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And, I wouldn't change it for the world because part of it was
a gracious golden era.
Yeah, it was. But also, it helped the show. It genuinely did. You watched, especially the three of us together, and we really liked each other.
There was a quality of there was a lived-in quality on that show that was missing from other sitcoms, and I'm not taking anything away from Seinfeld or Cheers or Friends,
that you were on. Yeah.
There was a really lived-in quality. These people are welcome in my living room because they enjoy each other. I enjoy them.
Yeah.
There was a party atmosphere that just increased as the show kept going.
Totally. Yeah.
So how'd the musical numbers start?
That was Drew's idea. Everything, Bruce had that idea about leaving those takes in, so I'll give Bruce that. But a lot of things that I'm proud of with the show were actually Drew's idea. He's a very creative guy.
Yeah.
He's a super interesting guy.
Yeah.
So he had the idea for Moon Over Parma and having it be an animated thing, which is our first credit sequence.
Yeah.
He was the first to do 5 O'Clock World
Right.
That was doing a musical number.
Fully choreographed musical number in the middle of a multicam sitcom.
Was his idea. Also,
I can't think of a precedent for that.
No, and what was weird about it was that then there were, this is not to take credit for too much stuff, but I will say it would be odd to say that because there were lots of musical sequences after that time, like a lot of shows were shooting musical numbers in their show after our show.
Right.
I don't want to be as bold as to say that we were the one that did it and that's why they did it.
I'm trying to think of a precedent though.
But there isn't one.
Yeah.
There isn't one. Yeah.
And also, but also, it's like you're
as far as I know,
it's more than like because okay, Buffy the Vampire Slayer does a musical number that's shot like a film anyway. You're shooting a traditional multicam sitcom in front of a studio audience, and they've got to feel positively punked by something like that. I mean, it's like a crazy flash mob before we had such a term.
Yeah.
What was the reaction the first time you guys started fucking singing?
They went bonkers.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's all Drew. Drew's whole thing was after the first year, I would say that we were a very conventional sitcom. It was a will they or won't they with Kate and Office Space comedy, and then the Friends at Home, loosely around both the structure of Friends, but also Drew's own experience.
Right. A slightly grittier Midwestern working class Friends.
Yeah. And the pool table outside was his idea. And the continual drinking was his idea. But the first year really was a conventional sitcom. Second year, I guess during the summer, Drew just really thought about it and came back with an almost entirely different show. Mm-hmm. And,
didn't really fire anybody.
No.
Which is wild because a lot of times when shows get re-envisioned, there's blood on the floor.
No, totally.
I've been watching, I have a guest coming up who was on Newhart. Oh. And Newhart was between season 1 and season 2, there was apparently a bloodbath.
Wow, yeah, right.
And a lot of shows, Ellen fired a bunch of people.
Yeah, I remember Ari.
In that transition. Yeah, of course. Ari's great. Ari's fucking great. Who gets rid of Ari Gross?
Nicest guy, too.
Nicest guy in the world.
It's crazy.
And so to completely re-envision the show but keep everybody along on the ride is another singular thing.
Yeah. No, it was huge. And Drew really took us in that direction. He's a very, very smart guy, as I said. So the musical numbers, and then they started just cascading. The Guess What's Wrong with This Episode.
I loved that episode.
Oh my God. Bonkers.
I loved that episode so fucking much.
Yeah.
I just remember Craig Ferguson finally going into his Scottish accent at one point after years of playing British.
Yeah.
I watched it live. I loved that episode.
Oh, fuck. Yeah. The live episode, that was his idea.
Yeah.
He watched, I think it was ER, or I don't know what it was.
There were a couple in the 90s that did live episodes. ER did one, and that sitcom, do you remember Rock on Fox?
Yes,
Charles Dutton?
They
did a live one in 92, right around the election.
And
it was, oh, no, I beg your pardon. They did a whole season live.
Yeah.
That's
they
right.
They did a whole season live. We did it actually during the election because the election hadn't been called yet.
Yeah.
So we did a whole thing where they kept running in and saying that it was one person or another.
Oh, my God.
And, but anyway... the live thing was his idea because he watched either ER or Failsafe. I can't really remember. And his big thing, he's a really creative guy. So one of the things that he started doing was the laughing and the fucking up on camera. Mm-hmm. He realized that if the audience is there and you're not fucking up, that they are watching the television and they're not thinking it's live. Mm-hmm. So after the first year, one of us would fuck up during the cold open, which is the first scene.
Right.
So that the audience...
On purpose.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that the audience would know, you're here. We're here. We're 12 feet away from you. It's not a television.
Because the audience has monitors that they can watch the show on.
Yep.
But there's some really interesting stuff going on.
We're so programmed to watch television.
Of course, that we look up at the screen.
Right. So his whole thing was, we got to shake them up.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the live episode was he wanted us to improvise. The bell ringing was his idea.
Oh, yeah.
For people that will forget that we would be doing a scene and then a bell would ring. This is live television.
Yeah.
A bell would ring and we would have to come up with another line.
It's an old improv game called New Choice. I've heard it.
New Choice. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, he got it all from Ryan and going down to the Second City stuff. But anyway, to do that on live television was really intense.
That's really intense.
It's intense.
Yeah. I'd have said fuck constantly. I'd
yeah,
have gotten us FCC'd to death. I would have constantly said fuck.
It's a temptation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a temptation because it's scary.
Yeah.
And you don't know when it's going, and we wouldn't rehearse with the bells. So, it was crazy. And
I would have had the network fined into oblivion.
he wanted it to feel alive.
Yeah.
He just wanted it to feel alive.
It does.
And so we also did a mountain time. Central time. I'm sorry. We also did a Central time because Ohio is Central time.
Yeah.
So it was important to him that we have a broadcast for them.
Nice.
So we did East, we did Central, and then we did West. So we did 3 shows that night.
Most places, when they do live episodes, most will do East and
Rock,
West.
for example, did 2.
Rock did 2.
Yeah.
30 Rock did 2 live episodes. It's just did 2.
Right.
To do 3 and to not forget Central and Mountain is noble. That's really classy.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
really true.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
God damn, no one. That's really cool. I want to talk for a moment about what's the first thing that comes up when you go to your IMDb page is what looks like about 1 days of work on Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
Were you there for like a day?
A day, yeah.
Yeah. How did they find you? How did they get an established TV star to do this tiny little Utah indie?
They offered it to me. I get few. I think that's probably one of 3 offers I've gotten on my entire career.
I can count on one hand.
Yeah. Television shows, I shouldn't say that. For guest star spots, I have gotten offers. But for movies, one hand. And my agent at the time said not to do it. It was like, but had to pass it on because that they're obligated to do it if you get an offer. Mm-hmm. And send it to me. And it is, to this day, the funniest script I've ever read.
Interesting.
I actually think that the script is funnier than the movie.
I'd be interested to read it. I'd be very interested to read it.
It's hilarious. I read it in bed because, I got an offer in the afternoon, and I was like, to be respectful, I'll tell him in the morning. Yeah. So I didn't think anything of it. The first thing he said was they have no money.
They have no money, and they're going to shoot in Utah.
Yeah. So Idaho.
I apologize. That's right. I did know that.
Idaho. But I landed in Utah.
Okay.
And I was like, they get 2 senators? Anyway. Anyway, so I read it and I could not stop laughing. And I was laughing so hard, my wife told me to shut up because I was laughing so hard. And she wanted to go to bed, which was completely understandable. But I was like, yeah, of course. And then, but I couldn't control myself. It reminded me of somebody that I went to school with, who I was totally obsessed with.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to a bunch of different places, as you know, but this was St. Stephen's in Alexandria, Virginia. Okay. And I'm not going to say his name because he might listen to this, and I don't want him to be burned. But he was like just like Napoleon. And I had my best friend, Andrew Brucker, was like, why are you always looking at him? And I go, because there's the rewards are great. Because you just have to keep your eye on him because you never know because something's going to happen. And he was like, okay, this is weird. It's like, what's happening with you? It's all boys' school. So there was always that element of like, is that what's happening? But no, he was an odd looking guy. That was not what's going on.
You just wanted to take it in.
It was unbelievable. For example, we're on 2 lines doing basketball drills in the gym. And it was the beginning of the flavor chapsticks.
Okay.
The 70s, you know. Mm. And he's got this cherry chapstick, and he takes it out of his little gym shorts, 70s shorts.
Sure, yeah.
And puts it on, right? And we're on opposite lines, and I'm just watching because it's worth it almost all the time. Like, so I'm watching him, and he goes like this. And then he just starts rubbing it on like it's really the most sensual thing in the world and really rubbing it and rubbing it.
This isn't a visual medium, but it's very sensual what you're doing.
The line gets closer and closer to the time where I get the basketball. And then he puts it like all the way up. So about half of the chapstick is up. And I'm like, something's going to happen right now. Something incredible is about to happen. I look around for Andrew because I'm like, where is he? But he's at the back of the lines. I'm like, you know, like do my little head tilt like, Andrew, check out how. Like, and he goes, like, so it doesn't catch it. I look back just in time. Ray takes a big old bite of it.
Fantastic.
Bites it like an ice cream cone. Like an ice cream cone where he's not going to get a brain freeze. He just goes to town, eats half the chapstick, and then starts like swallowing it, regretting it a little bit, but also really loving it. And it's rolling around his mouth, and he's like trying to think. And then the coach hits me with the basketball in my stomach because it was my turn. And I completely forgot I was in line. He goes, boom, right in, because, coaches, they're always going to bust your balls if they possibly can. Like, Bader, pay attention. I'm like, yes, sir.
Oh, my God.
Anyway.
But what I love is that you didn't narc the kid out for eating chapstick.
No, I didn't. You would never, oh, my God, no. Why would you do that?
I think there's a cruel streak in some kids where they'd be like, I'm sorry, coach, I got really distracted because.
I'm so tempted to say his name over and over again. But, yeah, no, you don't do that.
Classic.
I mean, you're just a dick. But if you do, but anyway, same hair too, like the tightly curled blonde hair. Yeah, which is described in the script.
Yeah.
So I think it went into my head that it was this kid, and brought back so many childhood memories, and I literally could not stop laughing. So I said yes, and I'm so glad I did.
That is a film that actually did quite well upon its initial release.
Crazy.
And I remember it did the craziest thing that I don't think a film has ever done before, is that it was out for a few months and then they re-released it with a bonus scene, which I've never, is like a post-credit scene that they added after the film's initial release, years before Marvel was just doing this de rigueur.
That's right, yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, and for Fox Searchlight, who bought the film at Sundance, it is the biggest selling DVD they had ever.
Oh my God!
That's why there's a sculpture of John as Napoleon on the Fox lot. Because it was it. I mean, you think about all the other
the only sculptures on the Fox lot are that and Homer.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think Luke. No, you're right. It's just a big painting of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, there's a painting, and there's a painting of Young Frankenstein, and there's a painting of 7-Year Itch. But
7-Year Itch.
Statues.
I was trying to remember. Yeah, no statues.
It's just Homer and John Heder.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your work as gay characters.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Two kind of distinct gay roles in Miss Congeniality 2.
Yeah.
And then Rich in Better Things.
Yeah.
And one is, again, it's the movie Diedrich versus TV Diedrich. One's kind of larger and flamboyant, and one is very understated best friend, but not like a stereotypical best friend who's just like, we need white wine, stat, or whatever. There is something. When you're approaching a character like that can be, as history progresses, is a little more politically touchy every time,
Especially for a straight guy to play a gay guy. Yeah. I mean, at the same time, gay guys want to play straight guys. So, I mean, you don't want to restrict the jobs that they can get. But, I mean, it's complicated.
Yeah.
I always felt, as I was dueling Joel, it's just unbelievably fun to play.
Yeah.
That I was probably over the top. And then when I saw it all together, I thought, well, I'm not going to win a GLAAD award. I think that people might be offended by it because it's so, I had just seen the Mizrahi documentary, and that's basically who I was doing.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I wanted the hair to be the curl. I mean, I have curly hair, but I wanted
that's the Nanook of the North one where he's going out for the new fall line, and he's inspired by that silent movie. Right, yeah. I've seen that.
And the designer cliche is there. And, I didn't know because I was making a huge choice if I would get it or not. But then in the room with Sandra, she laughed through the whole thing. So I thought, that's pretty good. We'll see what happens.
Right.
And then they went for it. It's interesting. There have been gay guys that have come up to me and said, thank you for the representation. I've never gotten a negative pushback because of it, which I fully expected, but I never got. But in my heart, I felt like I pushed it too hard.
Interesting.
So,
what would you say if someone came up to you and said, hey, you know what? Listen, I enjoy your work, but that one role kind of offends me. How would you handle something like that?
I would say, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, as I was doing it, I was thinking, am I pushing too hard? And then I went to the godfather of my kid's barbecue, and he's a gay guy. And it was like a barbecue filled with gay guys. And there was one guy who was more over the top than Joel.
Right.
So I was like, well, there's some room here, but yeah, I would get it if somebody were offended by that. Part of the reason that I played Rich the way that I did was because of Joel.
Interesting. So it's almost I want to say an apology, but a living amends.
Yeah, no, it is a living amends. Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, have you ever seen the movie America, America?
I don't think so.
It's Kazan. And in my opinion, I love On the Waterfront.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong. But it's my favorite of his.
Really?
And part of it is...
You've seen Face in the Crowd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of it is that it is an apologia for him at HUAC.
For him ratting everybody out to the House Un-American
If
Committee.
you really think about the theme of America, America, this kid, to get to America, he betrays everyone. Yeah. Everyone. Wow. And his whole thing is America.
I'm going to get
like,
there.
I'm going to get there. You guys, right now, you're either with me or you're against me. If you're against me, you're in the way. And you're going to get out of the way. And it's a fascinating film.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Rich was, I was told in looping, not by Pam. I got in and there, every line of Rich was in there.
Had to be re-recorded?
And I was like, wow, what happened to the sound? And I was told that it didn't read as gay enough. And I said to Pam, I'm not going to do it.
Wow.
And you're going to have to reshoot the pilot, cut my scenes, or accept it as it is. And to her credit, she is amazing. Mm-hmm. She was like, oh, thank God.
Wow.
Because I was told to tell you and blah, blah, blah. And she defended me after that 100%.
Wow.
But yeah, initially they wanted him to be gayer, so it was clearer that he was a gay guy. But in the first scene, to me, it's clear that he's a gay guy. So it's like, why do I have to do all these tropes, these character tropes?
Right. It's not all La Cage aux Folles.
It's not. Right. Yeah. They're just guys.
Yeah.
So they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And be whoever they want. And Rich is that guy. And I loved playing Rich. And my relationship with with Sam on the show is beautiful. And
it really is.
It's a great opportunity.
It is a great and unusual friendship.
Yeah.
And it is, and there's a wonderful moment where you pull up to work and she calls you with a friend emergency, and you just the camera just stays in the car with you as you pull out and head off to, and it's a wonderfully intimate moment that actually it says so much by saying so little. It's a real less is more moment of character development. Because there's a coworker at the hey, we're starting, come on, get in here, and you just fuck off to go
because there's something more important.
It's a wonderful moment. It's really really
brought
well
up
played.
that moment. I'm really impressed that.
Oh
you did
no,
that.
it really. I mean, I obviously didn't go through the whole series. That's another show that because it's so specific about acting work can be a little hard to watch sometimes.
For an actor, it would be really hard. She pulled off the incredible hat trick of getting people to care about actors, which normally nobody does.
But there's that amazing scene with her. We've had Alex Desert on the show, and her and Alex sitting in the car for that car commercial, just doing take after take after take, and then checking their phones between takes, and just it is. You want to get an idea of what this is like, listener? That's a terrific episode in which to start.
See what the life is actually like.
How did American Housewife come to you?
So, that was interesting because we've been rewatching. My wife and I have been rewatching Veep because my kids are finally old enough to where I feel comfortable with all of the language. It's really about my comfort.
No, sure.
Like I still can't watch sex scenes with my kids in the room. It's just uncomfortable for me. It's fine,
and it's not fun for them either. Yeah,
no, nobody. It's fine that they watch it on their own. They're old enough. It's
Godspeed.
Fine.
Watch Euphoria on your own time.
100%.
That's why we have internet.
My daughter watches Euphoria, and I'm like, cool, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead.
but I can't be in the room with you because it's just uncomfortable for me. It's just I find it uncomfortable.
Sure.
But anyway, there's a lot of language in Veep where I just didn't want them watching it when I was on. So now we're revisiting. It's been really fun watching it.
Yeah.
Veep sort of changed perceptions in town of me, that I could actually play a character that would not be broad, because I was known for these broad characters on film.
Oh, interesting.
And Oswald, I thought was realistic, but also kind of a broad character at the same time, because he's a dumb guy.
It's weird. The show was broad, but the acting is all fairly grounded. Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Considering you
Hot
dressed
House
up as
Flowers.
Frankenfurter one time, I still think there's a lot of grounding on that show, but okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite compliments of all time was when Tim came up behind me and went, "You make a marvelous Frankenfurter."
Oh my God.
It was pretty great.
That's fantastic.
It was pretty fantastic. But anyway, so anyway, it was difficult for me to, and I had wanted to play a dad character, because I was a dad, and but I was so specific about what I wanted, because one of the things I hate, talk about tropes of the dad characters on television, is
The
they're
horny
trying
buffoon.
that they don't know what's happening in their kids' lives. They don't know what's happening in their wives' lives. They really want to be out of it. They want to do their own thing. They just want to. That's not me. I really love my children. I love being part of their lives. I love my wife. I know what's happening with her. I know her friends. I am able to pick up on moods.
Yeah.
Like all of those things that are the tropes of comedy.
Specifically sitcom dads.
Sitcom dads. I did not want to play. So I would read scripts of dads that were just like that, and I would go, it's not for me. I just don't. Because the thing about it, as opposed to doing it in a movie, as you say, like one day on Napoleon Dynamite, a couple weeks on Office Space, you could do it for a short time. You could do whatever you want. But if you're talking about the possibility of years, it could be. Drew Carey Show ran for 9 years.
And 20 episodes a year. 20 to 22 episodes a year.
That's right. You're talking about the possibility of playing this guy for an incredibly long period of time. If you're not happy with the pilot, you really shouldn't, unless you really need the money, you shouldn't do it, because you're getting yourself into a situation that you may be miserable in. And I know it's a gilded cage, but it's a cage nonetheless.
Right.
So anyway, I would read these dad parts, and they were that. And I was like, Greg really loved his wife, really loved his kids, was 100% on board for whatever they were doing. Was he oblivious at times? Yeah, there's great dad jokes that they're like, we're talking, it's the Venus and Mars thing, which is completely appropriate, because that happens with my wife, where I'm like, what's happening? You know?
Yeah.
So anyway,
but you're in the same world, in the same room at the moment. Like you might be from different planets, but currently we're both on Earth. So and that's something a lot of sitcoms miss. Yeah.
So anyway, I read it and loved the script. When I walked in and met Kenny and Rick, the executive producers, who were great, the first thing they said was, "Oh, I love you on Veep." And I thought, "Oh, that's good," because they're not thinking of the other characters where this is going to be broad, because I'm going to play this as close to me as any character I've ever done.
Well, the Veep role is a grounded prick.
Yeah, he's awful. He's a truly terrible person.
But the great thing is that it's Veep, so that it's not like you distinguish yourself by
No,
being awful.
everybody's bad.
There's,
They're truly selfish, ethically
there's
awful
really
people.
a lot of garbage people on that show throughout. Even like the
100%.
good guys have their moments where you're like, oh, you're actually a monster deep down,
you're
aren't you?
all bad.
Yeah.
It's just that you looked good in comparison to these other people.
Yeah, it's a real. You were great. You're great on a curve on that show.
Yeah, of course. Also, growing up in the Washington area,
of course,
and
in the swamp, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. My dad was chief of staff of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee during the Carter administration under Frank Church, the head of the committee at that time. So I would go and do my homework in his office, and senators came and went, and so did all of the advisors. I actually knew these guys.
Wow.
So I know.
So who's on foreign relations during the Carter? Is Moynihan on there, or
no? Moynihan is not there, but probably the most famous at the time. Claiborne Pell was probably my favorite.
Oh yeah.
I totally fanboyed on him much years later in New York City. My wife was hilarious about it. Yeah, because
you fucking
she's
dork.
like, she loves actors, but I'm like, I see him from across the street and I go, oh my God, it's the former Senator Claiborne Pell from the great state of Rhode Island.
I just
And
threw
I
my
ran
head back
across the
so
street.
hard I hit my head.
And ran across the street. And I was like, former senator, how are you? And he goes, you're Bill Bader's son. And I go, that's right, sir. How are you? And he goes, where are you? Where's your dad now? And I go, he's at CSIS. And I go, oh, good. It's good for you. And I go, thank you, Senator. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. And yeah, anyway. So I knew specifically about politicians that they are, not all of them, but a lot of them are trumped up, peacocks.
Yeah.
And that advisors are these predatory, they're just sharks. They just move forward. Anytime it's really not about the morals or a greater picture, they're always just moving forward, like what we need to do to win. What's your goal? Let's get it done. That's that guy. So to me, Bill came very easily because he's that guy. I mean, he never a second thought about anything that he's doing. And that was, great to work with Julia. The first scene, the reason that I was on the fourth season was that I was on the third season as a guest star. It was supposed to be just two scenes, one show, and then I was done. We did the scene. It went incredibly well. She gave me a pat on my shoulder. And then in the loo, I'm peeing next to Bo, the camera guy, and he goes, oh, you're coming back. And I went, what are you talking about? And he goes, you got she patted you on the shoulder. And I go, yeah, she's just being supportive. She's great. And he goes, no, that means, she's an executive producer on this show. And I go, oh, yeah, no. And
it's the opposite of the Judas kiss.
Right, yeah. So, and sure enough, yeah. And she's the best. Did you ever work with Julia?
I did one episode of Veep in that was a straight offer because it was such a small role. It's a focus group for Jonah Ryan.
Oh, I remember. I saw that episode. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's based
it's fine. It was one day's work.
Yeah.
And they literally called in my wife and I. I'm one of the guys in the focus group. She's running the focus group.
Yeah.
And it's Jonah Ryan's horrible campaign ad.
Yeah. I remember now.
Which we didn't actually get to see.
Yeah.
We're going to shoot
that was
this.
Here.
It was here. Yeah, it was after you guys had moved back to
Dave Mandel's years.
Yeah, it was the Dave Mandel years. Yeah, and Frank Rich is on set. And I speaking of dorky things, I fanboyed on Frank Rich.
Yeah, sure.
Because I grew up in New York. I used to read his bitchy reviews.
Totally.
But there was an interesting. That could be it was super late, 2:00 in the morning or something, but a super playful set regardless.
Yeah.
And no two takes felt the same.
Yeah.
Very organic, a lot of fucking around.
Yeah.
Precious about the script, but not overly precious about the script.
I think that's well put.
It was a fun place to work. You've had such such an eclectic run. I ask this of all of my guests. What was a role that got away? What was a role that, for whatever reason, just didn't?
So it's interesting when I think about that because there's one role that really drove me crazy that I didn't get, and it was called. It didn't do very well. Christopher Lloyd ended up getting it, who's great. So nothing against Christopher Lloyd.
Who's also like 25 years your senior.
Absolutely, and a very big star. It was called Camp Nowhere. And it was about an actor who basically gets hired by these kids to pretend that they're going to military camp, drama camp, and a couple of other things. And in the first scene, in the audition scene, I played about 12 different characters.
Oh my God.
And then in the subsequent scenes, every character was a different guy. And then there's the guy himself, where he's just supposed to be. This is what he is, right?
This is your Alec Guinness role.
It was.
This would have been your Kind Hearts and Coronets.
So perfect for me. It was my dream. Honest to God, it was my dream, and the single best acting I've done was at that audition.
Oh my God.
Honest to God, I was modest as the next guy.
Yeah.
I fucking rock starred it.
Right.
And I was told that the audition tape was bootlegged and that almost everyone at Disney saw this tape because it's the single best acting I've ever done.
Do you think it greased the wheels for Housewife?
No, because way too soon. It was around the time of the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, shit. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, so it was a very long time ago.
Okay.
I was too young for the part.
Yeah.
It could have been done. But I was too young. They wanted an older guy because they wanted him living in a trailer and that his life had gone to hell. And that part of the story would not have worked.
You're barely 30 at that point.
No, I was 25.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
25 or 26.
And the thing about Christopher Lloyd is that he's looked thoroughly lived in since he was 20.
And he's great.
He's great. No one's knocking Christopher Lloyd. He's Reverend Jim.
He's
by
amazing.
all means.
He's amazing and he's super nice. But anyway, that's the best I've ever done. And not getting it because I heard that the tape had been passed around. Yeah. I had people that I knew that were assistants to directors and writers at Disney who had nothing to do with the film, had seen it and said, oh, we all watched it at lunch. And I was like, are you kidding me? I had executives that I knew that were junior executives in television, nothing to do with the movie. We're like, oh, we all watched it. We all watched it. And I was like, I'm going to get the best role of my life. I never wanted to be a movie star, but holy shit, I'm going to be a movie star if I get this part. And then I didn't get it. And it was crushing.
Yeah.
It was crushing.
Now, does it take the sting off that I'm really good at this particular job and I can barely recall that film?
I didn't see it myself.
Okay. You've seen my frame of reference up close, right? I know what I'm doing over here.
Well.
It didn't do very well.
It didn't do very well. Would it have been a hit if I had been in it? I don't know.
Hard to say.
Won't know.
We'll never know, will we?
I don't know. But all I know is that that's the only time I've heard of an audition tape being bootlegged. So maybe it would have been. Who knows? Who knows? I have very luckily had a good career. I'm completely content with where I am. I'm not working currently. I can't get arrested at this exact second.
I'm in a lull. I'm in a lull right now. Few people I know are in a lull. Where it's also it's not just that the industry is coming back. It's rejiggering. Pilot season was kind of on its way out anyway, and then lockdown happened in March of that year. Yeah. And we were like, well, why are we still doing pilot season per se?
Do this? Yeah. But I get to spend more time with my kids, and I'm incredibly happy about
Just
that.
as they're kind of getting older, and one of them's about to leave for college.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be Cats in the Cradle moment where, Sebastian is going to college next year.
Oh, my God.
Dean has one more year, and then she's gone. And then we're going to be, I love my wife, we're going to be empty nesters. This project that we've been doing together, it's not going to be over, but the day-to-day part of it is not going to be the same. And initially, because I had a good 6 years where I worked almost continually, now there's this lull, as you say, and I have finally, about a month ago, if I'm completely honest, come to accept that it's okay. Yeah. Because it's okay. I had 6 years of almost continual work. We're all right financially.
Same.
And so, as long as I'm not an idiot. And
exactly.
And
don't buy castles. I find castles seem to fuck people up. Castles fuck actors up. Yeah.
Right. NFTs, stay away.
NFTs are risky, and go easy on the boats.
Yeah. Not doing boating. Yeah. I'll go with you, but I'm not probably going to go in. So it's okay, but it is hard. At the same time, it's like all I ever wanted to do was continually work.
Yeah, of course.
And it was great for me to have that time. I was on Housewife and then Better Things and Veep at the same time. And it was just a dream.
Right.
Because I would also do cartoons during the day. So
that's right. You're a great Batman. You're one of my favorite Batmen.
Nice to say.
I love because it's closer to the Adam West model of a little drier, a little campier.
He's the guy I grew up with. So
of course. We're roughly the same age. So there's a certain tone of listen, it's fine that he's
revenge, yes.
Fine, okay, but also we can have some fun, right?
Yeah, come on, yeah. He's in a cape and tights.
Yeah, we can do the Batusi, right? Let's not rule that out. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here.
Exactly. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I'm digressing too much. Do you want
no such thing on this podcast? We welcome it all. Yeah, I feel like we have these lulls, but they, as the rest of the world starts to understand that the gig economy is becoming more prevalent, you have a profession that has been doing this for millennia, has been doing the gig economy for literally
Yeah.
millennia.
Since the beginning, yeah.
And we're rolling with it. We might be in some ways better equipped than some.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's fascinating when I used to go to my parents' retirement community because men without jobs tend to fall apart and the women stay around, especially in that generation, because the women were able to self-generate interest and the men needed interest to come to them.
Right.
Actors, if you go out to the actors' home, there's a ton of old actors out there
Yeah.
just rolling around because we're used to self-generating interest in our lives. Like, I'm going to find something to do today. So retirement for us is going to be an easy
gonna be a
gig.
cakewalk.
It's going to be the same thing.
Every once in a while, I'll hear about an older actor who passes away at that home. There's one up in, there's one down in the beach cities. There's one up in, like, I want to say Woodland Hills.
That's Woodland Hills. We're just past Woodland Hills. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I can't wait.
It's great.
Cannot wait.
It's great. I love going
awesome.
up there. I go up there all the time.
Do you have family there, or are you just visiting?
No, I just like you go up, you show up, and you just hang out with these old guys. They tell you
Fucking
stories
take me
about
with you.
their
I'm so
Seriously?
into that. Yeah,
I really
100%.
love it.
Let's
you
do
see
it.
The guys that work with the Duke, you know, and you're like,
Yeah.
what was John Wayne like? Well, on the first take, and I'm in.
Oh my God.
I'm in.
Catnip for me.
It's so fantastic because this is something you and I share. We both love character actors. It's filled with character actors.
Yeah.
You know everybody. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting somebody that you recognize that has been in 3 million movies at the time when they just went from gig to gig to gig to gig to gig.
Some of them are probably were like contract players still. There's still a few of those left.
Oh,
not
yeah.
tons, but
No, not a
the
ton.
studio system
Yeah.
was around until the early 60s.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So there
Yeah,
are
people
guys
forget
who
that.
had fucking bungalows.
Oh, yeah. I mean, one of the things that my wife and I discovered during COVID times was that we've seen so many classic movies. It was the first thing that we kind of bonded on were classic movies. I had an old bug when we were dating. My radio had been stolen. So I had a box that I would bring in and put it in the back seat. And I, as I was saying earlier, I love Fred Astaire. He, under, I guess it was RKO at that time, released singles of the songs that were in the movie. So there weren't the soundtracks. They were what was released at the same time as the movie. So I have that album, and I actually really love it. I also love rock and roll. Don't get me wrong.
No, sure.
But I love those. So anyway,
Stepping Out, great stuff in there. Yeah.
I put it on, not knowing. This is our like second date or whatever. I reached in the back seat, put on Fred Astaire, and she and I sang along, and she knew all the words. And I was like, holy shit! I just fell a little bit deeper. I've always been attracted to you, but this is like next level. Anyway, so we've seen almost all classic movies. So we consider them classics because they were the best of the studio movies. The studio shot a hell of a lot that we don't really know.
Yeah.
There's a hell of a lot. Like William Powell was in a lot of truly awful movies.
Oh, there's some shit back then. Don't
Really
assume that
bad.
something's in black and white. It's automatically a classic. Yeah.
Rosalind Russell and he were in, and William Powell were in a movie about code breakers. It's awful. It's terrible. We watched the whole thing. And we watched it because it's like, they offer other movies up and then you're like, oh, I've never seen Double Wedding, so why not?
Perhaps there's a reason, but let's
Right?
go.
There is always a reason. There is. His Girl Friday is a classic because it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Rosalind Russell was in a ton of movies that were bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, the thing that we would just watch these, we'd get some wine and we'd just watch these movies and we had nothing else to do for a long time. We're just in our house like everybody else. So, but we were in, just like, what's it like? We're going to watch the whole thing. We're not turning it off. The thing that really sang to us was we would watch just MGM.
Oh, interesting.
For maybe a month and a half. And then we would just watch RKO for another month and a half. And the contract players.
Yeah, you see the same faces. Yeah.
They would just be in so many movies.
Yeah.
They work with Cary Grant, or they'd work with William Powell as like the newspaper guy who comes up, hey, what are you going to say about blah, blah, blah? And then in the next movie, they're the cop that goes, hey, you better get out of that, thing. And then they're the
cab driver.
They're the cab driver.
Yeah,
they're the janitor.
yeah.
They're the everything.
I feel like you and I would have thrived under that system.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
I'd have had
Would been
steady,
heaven.
nonstop work. Residuals
Heaven.
were a little shakier back then,
didn't
and the
exist.
union wasn't as strong.
Yeah,
But
the union
it would have
wasn't as
been, we would have done okay.
Yeah, because we could do the guy. And also, it's like we have faces that are pleasant to look at, but they're not movie star faces.
No one's going to,
it's not going to pop out at you, but you're going to go, oh, hey, there's that guy. That's happily my career. But anyway, seeing those guys like throughout time go, and you just know he has one day on this. Next day, maybe even the same day, he's shooting another movie.
After lunch.
After lunch.
Yeah.
And you go, what do we got? All right, watch out for that. You don't want to trip over that. Something like that. That's his whole line. Yeah. I just love those guys. And I just love them.
Yeah.
I just love them. Yeah. So that was really cool about there's only two positives out of the terrible pandemic, which ended so many people's lives and upended our entire world. One was that I got to spend more time with my kids at home. And the other was that I got to discover those movies that I otherwise wouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
I just don't have the time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I got to watch Napoleon Dynamite with my kids.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was cool. It went over well. Went over really well.
I hope so.
Diedrich Bader, I cannot thank you enough for doing this.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
This was really fun.
Yeah, I really had a great time.
And that is an episode wrap on Diedrich Bader. You can find him on social media at Instagram at Bader Diedrich, or over on Twitter at Bader_Diedrich, which makes me think somebody went out there and got at Bader Diedrich before him. Who would do such a thing? Two chicks, and he's just sitting there watching. Thanks for listening.